welcome to this lesson on sexual and asexual reproduction. We're going to be looking at the difference between sexual and asexual reproduction, and we're going to look at how that affects variation. Okay, so what is the difference between genetic and environmental variation, first of all? Well, genetic variation is characteristics that have been inherited from the parents. The genes are passed on in the sex cells, and the offspring develops from those sex cells. Environmental variation is the characteristics that are caused by the differences in the places where the organisms live and grow and the conditions in those places. Okay, so your first task is another one of these sorting characteristics into different types of variation. So pause the video and have a go at that, and then we'll go through the answers. Okay, so you should have put eye colour down as genetic. Hair colour is both genetic and environmental because you've got your natural hair colour, but you can change it with dyes. Your accent is definitely environmental. Your height can be both environmental and genetic, as can your weight. The language you speak is entirely environmental. Your blood group is genetic. If you get heart disease, that could be either the environment or your genes causing that. Tongue rolling, that's genetic. Sense of humour is environmental, so I can't say it's all my parents' fault. Religion, also environmental. As is having a scar. Cystic fibrosis is a genetic disorder, and diabetes can be caused by either genes or environment. So what causes genetic variation? Okay, this is a reminder. Remember, in your cell there is a nucleus, and your nucleus contains chromosomes, and the chromosomes are made up of DNA. Your DNA contains genes, and the genes are what code for your characteristics like your eye colour and your hair colour. So where is the information stored? If we take the cell right into the nucleus, you've got a section of a chromosome drawn there, and that might contain the genes for eye colour, the genes for hair colour, and the genes for blood group, all on the same chromosome. Okay, that's all within the nucleus of the cell. Different species have different numbers of chromosomes. Humans have 46 chromosomes or 23 pairs in every cell. So what is DNA? DNA stands for deoxyribonucleic acid, and it's what chromosomes and genes are made of. It's the name of the type of molecule. Each chromosome is just a very long molecule of very, very tightly coiled DNA. The DNA molecule itself looks like a twisted ladder, and it's a spiral shape. We call that a double helix. Okay, DNA molecules are what carries the code that controls what our cells are made of and what they do. So, on Fronter, I've uploaded a fill in the gaps task that I'd like you to have a go at that. And then you can also have a go at describing the process of reproduction in the human body, trying to include the parts of the female reproductive system when you describe fertilization. So that's going back to the topic before this one. Okay, we're going to move on with the video now. So what is reproduction? Well, it's a life process, and it's a characteristic of all living things, which is why we don't count viruses as living things, because they don't reproduce themselves. Reproduction must occur to ensure that a living species survives, and that could be a plant, an animal, or a bacteria, or a fungus. The way they reproduce, though, can be very different. There are two key types of reproduction, which are sexual and asexual. For sexual reproduction, there need to be two parents present. Asexual reproduction only needs one parent. Okay, so in sexual reproduction, we've got two gametes, a sperm and an egg in the case of humans, which come together, fuse together in fertilization to produce an offspring. In asexual reproduction, you start with a single cell, and that cell doubles up its genetic material and then divides into two, and those are genetically identical cells. Okay, so I've uploaded to Fronter some information, which is statements about sexual and asexual reproduction. what I'd like you to do is decide which ones you think are for sexual and which ones you think are for asexual reproduction. Pause the video while you do that. Right, let's check your answers. So for sexual reproduction, genetic information from two organisms is combined to produce the offspring, and those two organisms are the father and mother. The offspring are genetically different to either of the parents. The mother and the father each produce gametes, for example, egg and sperm cells. In humans, each gamete contains 23 chromosomes, which is half the number of chromosomes in a normal cell. The gametes fuse together in a process called fertilization to form a cell with a full number of chromosomes. And offspring inherit features from both of their parents. In asexual reproduction, an ordinary cell can make a new cell simply by dividing in two. The new cell produced has exactly the same genetic information as the parent cell. There is no fusion of gametes or mixing of chromosomes. It's how plants and animals grow and produce replacement cells. Some organisms produce offspring using this type of reproduction, for example, bacteria and certain types of plants. And the offspring and clones of the parent, the offspring are clones of the parent as they are genetically identical. Okay, for each of these statements, I'd like you to decide whether it's sexual or asexual reproduction. So there are two parents, and the genetic information is passed on from both of these to the offspring. Okay, that is sexual. Remember, two parents means it's going to be sexual. The offspring are clones of their parents. Is that sexual or asexual? It's asexual. There is only one parent, and the genetic information is passed on to the offspring from this one parent. That is going to be asexual as well. There is more genetic variation in this type of reproduction. That is sexual. That's always more genetic information from sexual reproduction. So there is no genetic variation among the offspring in asexual reproduction.